Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. And have we got a treat for you today? I'm joined by Paige. Welcome to the show, Paige. Thanks for making time for us at this busy time. We're recording this in the run-up to Christmas. So how are you doing?
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
We're doing great here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cool. So could you introduce yourself to the listeners, please, Paige?
Yeah. My name's Paige Strickland, and I am a baby scoop era adoptee, and I was born in 1961 in the state of Ohio, and I'm still living in the state of Ohio. And I am in reunion with both sides of the birth families, and it's great. And I have two daughters and I've got two grandkids, and life's pretty good. Yeah. I'm a teacher.
Yeah. What do you teach?
Well, right now I'm working as a special needs aide.
Yeah.
At school. But I'm filling in, when people are absent and other workers are absent and they need me. So I'm kind of a utility player as well as an aide, and kind of nice because I get a lot of variety.
Yeah. So we have in the UK we have teachers, then we have teaching assistants. So the teaching assistants kind of do some of the legwork and help the teacher out. And is that kind of what an aide is?
It's pretty much, yeah. And in special ed, you've got kids sometimes that need more help than just helping. You have to help the kids more than you have to help the teacher. So that's kind of where I come in, but I've done both and do both. And it just depends on what's going on. And every day can be different, I like that. So it's never boring. And I've got some kids with big special needs and some with milder special needs, but everybody has needs. So yeah.
And you're an author as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm the author of 2 books. I guess we're on video here. I can show you the books, right?
You can show me the books. The listeners are only going to get the audio, but I'll put some links in the show notes so people can check them out. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if this was a video what do you call it? A video podcast there, or if it was an audio. Yeah. So there's the books.
Okay.
So Into the Truth was the first one I wrote, and then this is the sequel, After the Truth. And started writing. In some ways I started writing as soon as I knew how to do ABCs, but I started writing this book first. I call this the big sibling and this the little sibling, because even size-wise, it's kind of the same. When I had recently reunited with my birth father's side of the family, and my kids, who were kind of tween age then, like that age 10, 11, 12 kind of age range, really started to put pieces together in a more critical thinking way. And that's a teachery thing to say. But they, so now exactly, wait a minute, how are we related? How are they my cousin? How does that work? They're really starting to get into it more. On my birth mother's side, I had reunited with them before my kids were born. So they never knew a day in their life without Aunt Tammy and Aunt Kelly and things like that. But on my birth father's side, it was a little bit more of a complicated story. And so my kids got to go through that reunion with me, which was kind of cool. Yeah. Because they got to see relatives for the first time and go, oh my God, we kind of look alike. So they got that experience along with me. They barely really remember it. I mean, I think it was because not that they were way young, but they were at a point in life where, it was a little bit different for them. And, but they knew that there was this other crop of people that existed, and you never know when the phone might ring and you might get that phone call. So I had them prepared, in case the phone ever rang. And that was before cell phones and before, it went way back, right? The late 90s, early 2000s. And, but then they were like, well, then, okay, is Aunt so-and-so, which side of the family is Aunt so-and-so on? Which side of the family is this guy on? And they were getting a little confused by all that. So I started writing this to kind of explain the story the best I could and how every person played out.
Yeah. So
and then
that's akin to the truth. That's the book, Akin to the Truth.
Yeah.
So the name of the podcast, Thriving Adoptees. One of the questions that I like to ask is, what comes to your mind when you hear this term, thriving adoptees? What does that mean to you, Paige?
And I've listened to a couple of your other things, other podcasts. It's a little bit more on the positive side. Not that it's all perfect and wonderful and like happily ever after, la-di-da fairy tale, but that it tends to be presentations with a more positive spin than a negative spin. And I like that. And thriving obviously means you're doing okay. And so that's pretty much what I get out of that.
Yeah. Because people often say, well, you seem pretty positive, Simon, about this. And I say, yes, I am, and I'm not putting a spin on it.
Yeah.
I'm not faking it till I make it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. We live in a pretty fake, most of it's a pretty fake world that we live in most of the time. Yeah. Especially social media has turned faking it till we make it into like a sport that we could all play.
Yeah.
And and we can all we're all putting our game face on. So I'm not into the kind of like fake it till we make it. Stuff. I've tried that. It didn't work for me, really. No. I prefer to be. I prefer to have genuine conversations and
right,
and be genuine about how I am, how I'm feeling, and how I'm doing in life. So one of the things on this is that sometimes people think, well, somebody I had on the show. So Rebecca Autumn-Sansom, who wrote who's doing the film Reckoning with the Primal Wound.
Okay,
Nancy Verrier. She came on the show and she said, well, I'm not sure whether I would consider myself to be a thriving adoptee. I said, well, you seem to be doing pretty okay to me. I'd spoken to her before. She seemed to be, she's a mum. She's throwing herself into her into her work. She's throwing herself into the adoption space. Seemed to be thriving to me, and it was almost as if, like, if we're thriving, we can't have a bad day.
Right. Yeah.
So I have my ups and downs.
Right? My phone is ringing, and it's my daughter. I can tell by the ringtone. This is the third time the phone has gone off.
Okay. Do you want to get it? Yeah. So sorry, guys. This is real life. We're doing this in real time. We all have our logistics that we have to deal with. So I was saying, so there's the idea really that that we can be, thriving means we never have a bad day, or we never feel down, or whatever, that we don't have dark moments, and that's clearly that's not true. That's not how I see thriving. Thriving is, for me, one of my mentors described it. This is a guy called George Pransky. He says being grateful for the highs and graceful in the lows.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And another one of my mentors, a guy called Richard Wilkins, says that happiness and sadness are merely the high and low tides on a big sea called contentment.
Yeah. It makes good sense. Yeah.
So I mean, social media. We touched on social media earlier on, and I think that's kind of enforcing us to only show the good.
Right. Or then
Or,
there's all that only want to, can I
yeah,
say moan? Because that's kind of what it is. And, I'll turn a bunch of people off just for saying that, but I'm just not about that. I can't do that. I can't live that way.
yeah. So
So,
yeah, me neither. Like
and
what
I
we
think,
focus on gets bigger, right? What we
right. And
focus,
maybe if I'd had a really horrible experience, I don't know. I mean, maybe I would be in that camp, but I don't know. I just can't see myself living that way. Yeah.
yeah. Trauma dumping was a word I heard a while ago.
Trauma.
And one thing I see is that somebody goes into a group and says, or goes onto social media and says, I've got X going on in my life. They relate the X to something that's happened in the past, because this isn't just adoptees.
Mm.
Has anybody else felt that way? And everybody jumps in to affirm them, and as they affirm them, they keep them down.
Yes.
So the Richard Wilkins guy that I mentioned earlier on, he said another great line he heard from him was that encouragement does for people what helium does for balloons, right? So the helium lifts the balloon.
Mm-hmm.
But what we see in social media generally is, not generally when people are coming from the negative space, is that everybody else is throwing sandbags into the balloon, into the basket of the balloon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that stops the person rising. And if you, I mean, I would never dare to well, I kind of did this in a roundabout way. I questioned something. I didn't say you're wrong. I questioned something, and all hell let loose.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, well, you're invalidating my experience,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't. I was asking a question. I'd said,
Right.
interesting point. Ask the question.
Right.
But so what everybody does on social media, if it's a negative one, is they'll throw the sandbags in, and that keeps the balloon firmly on the ground.
Yeah.
And eventually if you put so much weight in it, it's going to sink in. It's going to go further and further down. And so many people talk about kind of that, wanting validation, but the validation somehow keeps us down. Like, whereas a coach
Yeah.
would question.
Right. Well, and some of them have better moderator presence than others. I think that has something to do with it too. If you hear from the moderators every day or at least every few days, as opposed to there's a moderator there, but I don't know who that person is, and you never hear from them, and I don't recognize the name, then it's a free for all.
Yeah. So what do you think helps adoptees thrive?
Well, one of the things I know that helps me is having a community, having other adopted people. And I don't know how it is for like the 20-year-olds, and even the 30-year-olds, but for me, growing up without a single other adopted person anywhere around me, it was like you were hidden in plain sight if there were, and because nobody discussed it. It was because it was much more stigmatized. I don't know if it always is now. Maybe a little less so, since the single mom thing is not quite as, it's not negative like it used to be, but it still can be, it's like a personal business. And sometimes adoption happens, because of some really unfortunate thing that happened, and nobody wants to discuss that. So therefore adoption doesn't get discussed. So I think having a community with other adopted people, and not just the echo chamber people, but people from all walks of life and all experiences. I like that. And I learn a lot from that. I still learn a lot from that. I mean, I'm 60 and I'm still learning stuff. It's never going to stop. And that's okay. That's how it should be. But, even sometimes the negative opinions, I mean, you can learn off of them, even if it's learning what not to do. But you can learn off of them. And some people have had some horrific experiences. So it's just, and then other people have had totally great, perfect experiences. And most of us are something in between, or maybe it was just, the way other kids at school treated you. If you happened to share about it, I never did. I wouldn't share at school. So
Yeah.
there was not a single kid I grew up with that, like I said, we were like hidden out in the open. I had no way of knowing if I said I'm adopted, that if another kid would go, "Oh, me too." It probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you, I'm trying to remember. I didn't know any of the adoptees growing up. I
Yeah.
mean, I've only started calling myself an adoptee, like,
Hmm.
since I've been in this space, because it makes it, shorthand, like,
Right.
it's just
Yeah. It's a
shorthand. I
word.
used to say I'm adopted, or yeah, it's just I'm
Adopted.
adopted. Not I was
Yeah.
adopted. I am adopted. I'm saying, how many people did I tell? Not many. How many others did I know? Not at all. I remember going to a party, um, for a friend's 18th. I think it was,
Hmm.
might have been a 21st, maybe a 21st birthday. So I'm 54, coming up 55. So I'm going back, whatever, 30 odd years. And this guy's girlfriend was there, and somehow, I don't know, she said that she was adopted, and I kind of felt drawn to her. She was very pretty as well.
Hmm.
But it was but she was going out with my friend, so that I wasn't going to pinch, I wasn't going to tread on his toes. Um, uh, but there's something that drew to me, that kind of like that shared experience. But and we had a good chat. But I don't know, I maybe saw her a couple of times after that, but never again. But no, never talked about it much. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. There haven't been a lot of people that you can talk about it freely with that get it. And I love going to like the NAP
yeah,
I convention isn't the word, workshops, the conference that they have in Indiana. If you ever get a chance, I mean, I know airfare is insane and stuff, and travel right now is complicated, but if you ever get a chance, oh man, it is so much fun and it's so interesting. And it's just, I mean, it's like the best summer camp for 48 hours. you know, and you're just hanging with all these people that are just like you, and you do meet some birth parents too. But that's cool because you got to have everybody's point of view. It's not just me as an adopted person, but all the points of view. And my birth mother was deceased, so I never really got to talk to her or hear her side of things. I heard it through some aunts and my sister, but I didn't get to hear from the direct source, right? The primary source. So to go to something like that and be able to talk to people from the other sides of, it's again the language now, the constellation, is pretty interesting. It's like, yes, she probably went through some of those things, or maybe she didn't do this thing, or the circumstances of how things happened was different. That's always a story too.
yeah,
So, but to hear people's stories and see their talents and what they're doing.
yeah. So, what are the freshest learnings for you at the moment, Paige?
Oh, really, it's anytime I just meet another adoptee and we actually get to have a conversation, and we, connect, and, then we'll get connected on social media after that. I get requests from random people, and I just don't answer them all because it's like, I haven't met you in person. I don't even see you around online in other groups, so I just don't recognize you at all. But if our paths cross again, then I'm gonna go, okay, that's a thing. Click. But but yeah, just being able to have meaningful conversations just in the general sense. 'Cause everybody's just got different stories, and it's just fascinating to hear everybody's stories. And I read a lot of the adoption books and then do book reviews on my blog, and I'll put it up on Amazon and I'll put it on my blog and share it around. You've probably seen some of that go around. And just every time I read someone's book, it's another learning experience. If I can't talk to them in person, because that's not always possible, but the book is great.
Yeah. Well, talking about the book, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite book?
My favorite, well, my own books, of
Of
course.
course, yeah.
I don't know that I have an absolute favorite, because there's so many out there and I don't want to mention one person and it hurts somebody else's feelings. Um, I found, let's see, Damon, right? I think I
Yeah.
heard you interviewed on Damon's. His was great. His was a great book. And he does good writing too. And so that one I like.
Is
Mary
it
Ellen,
is it a story, or does he distill the learnings on the story as well?
it's everything. Yeah, it's his experience before he decided to search, and then he has kids and he decides to search. And so it's the thing that triggers you to do the search is always interesting, because that's different for everybody. Whether it's because you had a baby and so then you want to go out and search because you owe this to your kids, to not have them growing up with this blank blob of history, that isn't there for them. And that was, I had that motivation, but I hadn't had my kids yet. I was like, I want to do this before I have kids. And and some people, it's somebody dies, and then they feel like they're free to do it, or it makes them start thinking about things they never thought of. And sometimes it's, well, in my case, it was watching a TV show that was about adoption. And it's like, wow, back in the 80s, there was no shows about adoption. It was a talk show. And it was local here. It'd be nobody anybody knows, probably, but it was a local homespun TV talk show back before we had cable or anything. And they had a panel with two adoptees, and I think it was a social worker on there, and then a birth mother. And they interviewed all of them and got perspectives there. And then the two sisters reunited that had never seen each other before. So we saw the ad on TV that's going to be on the next episode of blah blah blah, and uh, okay, I'll watch it. I'll check this out and see. Never seen anything like this on television before. And then there it was, all out in the open, nothing that we don't discuss today, but it was being discussed back then. So, there were people in the audience just clutching their pearls going, ah, they searched. And then there's other people were cool, and so it was pretty cool. It was pretty interesting. And that's what got me started.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we're on talking about the books.
mhm. Yeah, so anyway, the triggers, yeah, to get, sometimes the books start with what was the trigger that made you decide to start searching, and then what was your experience searching, how did you do it, where did you go, who did you talk to, what stroke of luck fell in your lap, because a lot of times that's what it is strokes of luck, especially with all this secret hidden information, um, that you crack the code. You just get lucky on something. And I know I had some spots where I just got lucky. Now, had social media been a thing when I was searching in the late 80s, I might have found people immediately. like a lot of people do today. But I found my birth father in 3 days, which in the 80s was almost like finding somebody immediately, because usually months to years.
Yeah. Have you read the more kind of the psychology books?
I have. I've read the Primal Wound, like that kind of a book. Yeah, I've read that one, and I need to reread it because it's been years. But the Betty Jean Lifton books,
Right.
I've got them sitting in my cabinet because that's when I first started my search. Went to the bookstore, actually found that, but well, I was at a support group and they recommended the books, and so I actually found some in a bookstore at the time in the mall, and I think there's 2 of them that I read while I was doing the search, and I search for a day, then take a break for a day and read, and then go back and search another day and then take a break and read, and just take the stuff all in. It's like, I've never been able to have somebody tell me these things before. I've never had anybody to discuss, even if it's in a book and it's kind of one way, but it's still better than no way, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just so enlightening to go, wow, this stuff is real and this stuff is worth talking about. And I don't have to keep it hidden. I don't have to be ashamed. But I was ashamed.
You felt ashamed?
I felt ashamed. Yeah. I mean, I think I picked up, they say sometimes the birth parents are the ones that have the shame. I had the shame growing up. I was first it was, oh, if the kids at school find out this, I am dead meat, you know. So yeah, never tell a kid at school. That's just one more thing they're going to make fun of you for. It's one more thing they're going to bully you for. So you never tell a kid at school. And that kind of grew into, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anybody you work with. The only person I ever told was my husband, obviously, you know. And he actually he responded the right way. He went, oh, well, that's cool. I got 2 cousins that are adopted, so okay. They didn't live in town. They weren't people I could call up on the phone and go, hey, but they were, he got it. He got it as much as a non-adopted person can get it. And then actually one of his cousins actually did do the search. She started a little bit before me and found her family's a little bit before me. So she did come into town. She and I were able to have a good talk. So, yeah.
So did that shame go, and what was the, how did that?
Yeah, it was slow, it was a slow roll out. Like I wasn't ashamed anymore if I was around other adopted people, right? But then people outside of my support group that was once a month, it was still just don't say anything, don't stir the pot. And my workplace at the time, I was in a Catholic school. And so I'd heard plenty about how the Catholic Church was handling adoptions. Really keep your mouth shut. I just busted down their doors. I just, found people that they're against that, so keep my mouth shut at my job.
Yeah. Well, the Catholics invented the original sin, right? So kind of, it seems to me that if an organization does that, then they're kind of they're embedding shame right from the start, aren't they?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I got Catholic guilt and I'm not Catholic.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was that kind of that guilt and shame thing, and just keep it to yourself. And it's one of those things that nobody else ever has to know. They can't tell for just looking at you. And in the family I grew up in, I could pass for being related. So it's in fact, people today still, if they see me and my mom, they don't think twice. I mean, or they just take that natural assumption that that lady sitting with me is my mom. They don't look at me sideways like, she looks like that and that's your mom. I never get that.
No. So did reading The Primal Wound, did it what effect did that have on the shame?
Well, see, I only read that. Yeah, I only read that a few years ago. I didn't know about that book for a long, long time, really, until I started getting into these groups on Facebook. And then I was like, oh, there's another book out there. Okay, I should read that one too, because it's not strictly memoir, although, she does get into a little bit about her personal experiences, but it's more of a informative educational book than it is memoir. And I liked it, but I was kind of at this point where I could go, yeah, I know that. I already know that. I remember going through that. Yeah, I had that happen too, that kind of stuff. So I would say because Nancy Verrier, she's an adoptive parent. So some people knock her down because she's not an adoptee writing that, like she's telling someone else's story and that's not her place. I don't know. I think she still honored her it was one or two daughters or both, or she honored her kids fine in it. I didn't think she went into a whole lot of details that, and she said in the book, if anybody actually read it, that she asked her kids before she actually put it out to publish. She didn't just like, I'm going to publish this book and make money on you guys. She didn't do that, so it's, everybody should read it. It is styled a lot more like a educational book than a story. And if somebody doesn't know that going in, then they should know that. But it's informative. It's kind of timeless in that even though it was written, I think originally in the 90s, it's still, everything in there is totally accurate.
So you believe in The Primal Wound, yeah?
Yeah, I think. See, I'm funny with words. I'm a word nerd, but I'm funny with words. I think those are strong words. I don't feel like I got, in the literal sense, wounded myself, but I understand that it's real for other people. But you can take it in a more symbolic sense too, in that we were all wounded because of the separation and not really knowing what was going to happen next.
Yeah. So if something was wounded, what would it be?
It could be disappointed or confused.
Well, disappointed is a lot less threatening than
Right,
wounded.
right.
Yeah.
And to get a book out there and have success with the book, sometimes you have to have stronger words. That's what sells. And a lot of people believe it is a true wound, just without actual blood. But it's so I think that's maybe where she came up with that.
Yeah. I
primal, because it's right at birth and it's just the very start of being a human being and things like that. Although you can be a human being before you're birthed out, but you're,
yeah.
like we know it.
I think I don't believe in it at all. When I first read it, I didn't feel wounded till I read The Primal Wound.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've not
but
felt
then
wounded in that sense.
I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. I believed it, and it took me down. Not very far, but it took me down. And then when I realized that that we're unwoundable, right? So it's sometimes talked about, if I ever get round to writing a book, I've started 3 times.
Yeah.
About 10,000 words. I prefer talking to writing, actually, so that's why I do the podcast rather than do the
Okay.
do the writing.
Yeah.
But the what's wounded was the question. So
Yeah.
me, my experience,
Right.
and I would say, well, I have felt wounded. I've I have felt pain, but I have not actually been wounded, as in,
Right.
So we're down to this identity question.
Mm-hmm.
We're down to the identity question, which a lot of adoptees struggle with, and a lot of non-adoptees struggle with it as well.
Yeah.
So we get into that. We get into the identity realm, and
Mm-hmm.
So identity. Well, yeah. What's identity? Who are we? And so,
Right.
I'm Simon Ben. Well, you're talking to Simon Ben now, but I was David Anthony Flower, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was my name until adoption, was David Anthony Flower. So we can't be, if I've had two names, I can't actually be my name, because who we are is forever, right?
Dual personality people, right?
Yeah. So we're two identities. We can't have two identities. Anything,
Right.
The truth is always true.
Yeah.
The truth never changes.
Right.
The truth never changes. So we can't be our name, because most people are born without a name, so they can't actually be it.
Yeah.
And then we get into, for me, my real area of fascination of who we are. So, well, we sometimes we identify in common parlance in every day.
Mm-hmm.
You could say I'm Simon Ben. Well, I'm not that. I'm the I am. I'm the we identify with our feelings. So I am happy, or I am sad. Well, feelings come and go.
Right.
Feelings come and go, like names come and go. So we can't be that either.
Right. Yeah. You can identify yourself as a certain kind of employee too, a job title.
Yeah,
And
you can do it by the role. You can look at by the role. Look at by a role. A role in a professional capacity. You said I'm a teacher. I could say I'm a podcaster, but I haven't always been that. That role comes and goes.
Right.
So that can't be it either. And when we say I am wounded, well, I am feeling wounded. I am feeling insecure. I am feeling unwanted. I am feeling I don't know, lesser than other people.
Yeah.
Or I am feeling stigmatized. But those feelings come and go. So we're not our feelings, because when the feelings come and go, we're still there.
Right. Right.
We're still there. And the phrase I always use on this is that, the Philip to Desjardins quote. He says, we're not spiritual. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that spirit is unwoundable, because it's not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a thing. You have to wound something. She's using a metaphor, and as you say, she's using a strong metaphor. But that we use this a lot, don't we? We say this quite a lot in common everyday language. I didn't even know it was a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know it was a thing, or I didn't know that. So what do we have? Everybody's trying to come up with things, like Christmas stress. Like what?
Yeah.
It makes it more real. You give something a name, you make it more real, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for me.
Yeah.
It makes it more concrete.
Yeah.
We've got a Christmas stress. It's not just stress. It's Christmas stress. And then and then the mind goes looking for all the things. It starts regurgitating the to-do list. With the primal wound, the mind is a meaning-making machine. So all right, well, that's adoption. Oh, that's adoption. That's adoption. That's adoption.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I can't blame adoption for every behavior or mannerism I have, or every experience I've had. I mean, I can in the sense of if I hadn't been adopted, I wouldn't have met my husband, for example, because I would have been in a different school, different place, different time kind of thing, or odds are I would not have had, the friends that I did have and things like that. Might not have the pets and the kids I have and all that kind of stuff. So those things, yeah, adoption was a twist of fate, but we're still the same players in it. So
Yeah.
it's like almost like an alternate universe, which is, I guess, then it goes into that Ghost Kingdom thing, which if you have not had a chance to see that Ghost Kingdom movie, oh my goodness, it's good.
Yeah. He's been
Brian's
Brian's been on the show. Yeah. His screenings have been like weird times for us in the UK.
Yeah.
I think he's got a recording some of the time, but I need to.
Yeah.
I need to
Been
check.
in California time or something, and yeah,
That's
but at Indiana we got to see it, and it's. I mean, to think too that he and his wife put that together during COVID with iPhones. I mean, like, I got an iPhone. I should go out. Oh, wow. This is a cool idea. What a cool project. What a great COVID project. All I did was clean my house. So, I mean, yeah, and that was cool. It was artfully done. And of course, he has professional experience in acting in theater and things. So, he knows what to do to kind of stage things or to, direct in that way. Like, let's get this angle here and let's get this here. He had a couple of, again, lucky breaks. There was something like a bird or something that crossed the sky just at the right moment, or a plane or something that crossed the sky. And it was just like, ooh, when you saw that. And he was like, I didn't plan that. Just happened that way. Worked out. Yeah. And I mean, it's like a one-man show pretty much, and his whole experiences on, and there's a little bit of poking fun at some of the bureaucracy and the stupid that people have to deal with sometimes when you're trying to find somebody or make a phone call and they route you to this person, they route you to that person and this, and then they put you on hold, and then you get hung up on, so that's, and I remember going down to Vital Statistics one time downtown, and the person, young woman behind the desk, she's sitting there eating donut holes. And I'm like, I don't want your sticky hands all over these papers. That's gross. But I mean, it's like, just give me the papers. Give me the information and I'm out of here. But it's sometimes you have to just deal with stuff like that. And so, he's poking a little fun at that. And then actually getting to meet people and going through his emotional process. And it's a great movie.
Yeah. I need to check it out. One of the things that's on my mind at the moment is, because the primal wound became a self-fulfilling prophecy for me, as I say, is I was thinking about while I was swimming this lunchtime. Do adoptive parents buy into the primal wound, in your experience?
I think they could. I think it's possible. I don't think mine did. Because, well, for one thing, mine weren't aware of it.
No, it wasn't out.
It wasn't out. Not in our day. And in today's day, they have to, number one, even read the book and know it exists and take the time to read the book. I think it's an eye opener, and that if an adoptive parent or prospective adoptive parent would read that before they're raising a child, it's an insight. I wouldn't say it's 100% absolute. This is exactly going to happen to you and your kid, but it's a thing to make you think. And you can never have too many things to make you think, but also then you have to kind of put your own circumstances and your own ways of long into it and go, well, but this is what our experience is this because this makes it a little different. But, because, I'm reading that going, I could relate to a lot of things in there. And especially when I was a kid, not so much now as an adult, but a lot as a kid. It was like, yeah, I went through that. That was every day of my life when I was 12 kind of thing. But not so much now. I think I kind of just, I don't know, somehow found a way to move past a lot of that. Um, and it definitely helped because I was able to find birth family and have a successful reunion. If I hadn't had that, I can't say how I'd feel. And to be totally fair, because I haven't lived that experience. So
there isn't a more positive take on it, though, is there? I mean, you can believe in the primal wound, or you can believe in this, you can believe in the separation trauma, or whatever you want to call it, like, not necessarily believe in the book. For me, the book describes what is human, and pins it on adoption. So I've done all my emotional work outside of the adoption area, right? Not with adoptees, and none of them think that they're good enough either. It's not. Everybody fears being dumped. Everybody fears being dumped or divorced.
Right.
Everybody wants to control things. Everybody. What's the other thing she has? A fear of rejection. Everybody's scared of rejection.
Fear of judgment.
Yeah. And so what's happening is that as we go through our day and our life, our year and our life, our mood goes up and down.
Right.
And when we're feeling low, we think that we want things to be better, and she's blaming the human experience on adoption. In my opinion, that's what.
Yeah.
How can one event,
regardless? And I mean, if you're non-adopted and still raised in a home where you have a lot of rejection and lack of acceptance because you do something different from other people. You grow up and you don't go into the family business, for example, or you just want a different lifestyle than everybody else. Those are usually two of the big ones that get you rejected, whether you're adopted or not. And so I don't think it applies just to being adopted. It can.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's been, we're talking about social media. Well, I've heard lots of people talking about social media and why is it, why is it that we put this positive, we, the human race, put this positive face on social media, unless we're moaning, of course. But we put the positive thing on because we want to be accepted. We want to be accepted. So we want to be accepted, and we're afraid of being rejected. So we put our best face on. So this is, for me, kind of another pointer to my take on the wound in it. And I get to the very essence of it. I ask people that question. So what is it that's wounded? So I asked somebody yesterday, and they said our psyche. Well, our psyche, is that who we are? That's a collection of our thoughts. Is that who we are? Somebody else said our relationships. Well, are we our relationships? No. Somebody else said our ego. No, that was me, actually. I came up with the ego. I thought, so for me, I felt that my ego was wounded, and as wounded.
I would say affects all those things, but doesn't directly wound those things.
But we're
But
not our, we're not our ego. We're not our ego. We're not our
Right.
psyche. We're not our feelings. We're not our
Right.
relationships. It's not who we are, you know.
Right.
So understanding the, you know, the if we look at this like the spiritual being having the human experience, all the trauma, all the psyche, all the ego, all the feelings, all the ups and downs of life, you know, life's a contact sport. They're all in the human experience, and that's loud, and it gets our attention in, and it's like that, you know, it's the drum kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the spiritual experience that we're having, that's more like the piccolo, right? It's really quiet and nobody really hears it. But we're all drawn to the drama. We're all drawn to the drama. And you referred to that, you know, with Nancy Verrier, the title of the book. You need a dramatic title. Well, and you used the word, well, disappointed. Well, I'm not going to be afraid of being disappointed, but like primal wound, kind of, it's like we used to play this kid in when we were kids, called Murder in the Dark, you know, like a kid's game. And you know, you're waiting for somebody to, supposedly you're supposed to tap them on the shoulder, but then if you play it with, especially if you play with boys, then obviously it gets a bit more boisterous, and the taps on the shoulder aren't taps on the shoulder, and it's really scary. Well, you know, when for me, that whole, you know, discovering who we are is, you know, underneath our role, underneath our name, underneath our feelings, underneath our thoughts, underneath our ego, underneath our psyche, that spiritual essence, that's where the healing part, the ultimate healing happens for me, is understanding who we are. But you know, I summed up in there in 12 seconds what I've been studying for the last 12 years. So
yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't make any sense to anybody. I don't know. Does it make any sense to you?
Yeah. Our personal life force is who we are. Yeah, when you get right down to it. And then all the experiences and things that happen around us that we take in can have an effect on what we do with that, what we do with our lives. But yeah.
Personal life force. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring in before we?
Nothing that I can think of. Now, are you in reunion?
My birth mother, like yours, unfortunately died. I get a letter from my diggings. I get a Christmas card off my.
You have siblings?
I have a little sister. She's adopted too, but adopted out of a different family.
Okay.
I wrote to a guy who I think is my birth father. I never heard back, but it was never really about him anyway.
Yeah.
So I get a Christmas card from my birth mother's brother who lives
Your
in
uncle.
Canada. My uncle, yeah. No, that's about it. But during that process, I found some papers and letters that showed how wrong I was in my.
There's my mother calling.
Okay, let's wrap it up, and check everybody's. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to put links in the show notes, so I'd encourage your listeners to take a look at Paige's blogs, the book reviews, and then look at books. And thanks all for listening. And
thanks, Simon.
Have a great Christmas.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, listeners.
Bye.